Hello and welcome to the Leadline Live. I'm your host, Mandy, and today I am joined by Sarah Judson of the Equestrian Business Academy. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Well, you're going to be talking about something that's super important when it comes to running a horse business, and that is how to set profitable goals as an equestrian entrepreneur. But before we dig into the topic today, I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are and what you do at the Equestrian Business Academy.
Sure. Yeah, I'm an equestrian accountant, which means that I work with horse businesses with their accounting, QuickBooks, and financial planning. And I created the Equestrian Business Academy to build out my learning material and to help a broader audience. So, the Equestrian Business Academy, we've got an online course, a lot of different training material related to financial planning, getting your QuickBooks and bookkeeping routine together, and just really kind of digging into the really detailed how to financial management of your horse business.
That is so important. I mean, we're in this to make money, right? We do it because we
Right.
love horses, but we also need to
Right.
make money.
Yeah.
So important. And that's why I love talking about these topics at the Lead Line. And I think that I'm really going to enjoy talking with you and seeing your presentation tonight and sharing that with the Lead Line community. So, before we dig in, I just want to mention a couple of things for those that are tuning in today. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to leave a comment on this video where you're watching on Facebook. We may or may not be able to see your name over in the chat where we're streaming from on StreamYard. So, we might just see your question and say, hey, we got this random question here from Facebook, and we'll address it that way. But if you'd like for us to know who you are, you can always leave your name after your comment, and that way we can talk to you by name as well. So go ahead, leave your questions as we get going here. And let's dig in, Sarah. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the presentation here today because we've got some great slides that you've put together that people can follow along with. And we'll
Okay.
put those in the stream and get going. So let's see where we are. Okay, so I'm going to hand it off to you, Sarah.
Okay, so today we're talking about goal setting for your equestrian business. And my target or goal for this presentation is to help you transform your big, broad ideas into a defined plan that has financial targets that will help you track and ensure that you actually get to that end goal. So first I wanted to talk a bit about, why do we goal set and what's the point? Because I think a lot of times we can get really into our business and we can forget about the bigger vision that we have. And I love this quote: to begin with the end in mind means to start every endeavor with clearly defined outcomes. So for me, the big bonus for goal setting is that it informs the decision making that you do in your business every day. So if you have in your mind a vision or an idea or a target, you can choose to take opportunity or to not take opportunity and make sure that you're serving that goal. And so that's why I think it's really important. And a lot of times people start goal setting, they do it annually when they do their budgeting, but you can goal set on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. You can really make it work for you. If things change in your business and you want to do some goal setting in the middle of the year, that's great. All right, so we're going to follow a framework that's loosely based on SMART goals because we want to create those defined, targeted goals. And so I'm going to give you some prompts. There's a workbook that you can download that has even more prompts, and these are just to kind of get you thinking. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try and create a big picture goal. So this is the broad goal that I talked about. And while you're thinking about what your big picture goal is for your business, I want you to think about these three things. So the first is your vision. What is your vision for your business? And you might start by thinking, when you started your business, what did you have in mind for it? Did you want it to serve a certain clientele? Did you want it to be a, busy lesson business? Did you want it to sell all over the internet or only sell in your hometown? I want you to sort of think about that and try to get back to, what your vision for your business was when you started out. You can also think about what excites you about your business. So if you have certain pieces about your business that you just love to do, keep that in mind because you can shape your goals towards building those pieces of your business. And then I also recommend that you think about what part of your businesses drain your energy. So if you have any 80-20 clients that, are paying you 20% of your revenue, but taking up 80% of your time, maybe one of your goals might be to drop that client. And we can think about ways in which we can make that happen. So the second thing I want you to think about are your values around money. Money values are really important to consider when you're making any sort of financial goals. And money values are completely personal. There's no right or wrong. And some examples would be, are you a risk taker? So do you like to just jump in and, start on a new project with your business? Or are you a planner? Maybe you want to take a long time to think about something and work out the details. If your goals don't align with your money values, then you're probably not going to accomplish them, right? So if you're somebody that likes to jump in and you make it a goal to research a business plan for 12 months, you're probably not going to stick with that goal. And then lastly, we've got to think about reality. So what does your business have to accomplish during the year? What's your break-even point? How much money do you need to make to pay your fixed expenses? Those should all be a consideration when you're thinking about this big picture goal that you have for your business. All right, so now we have a big picture goal. You might have one or two. Let's just focus on one for now. And now we're going to think about the how. So how are we going to create this vision that you have? And these are 3 different ways that we can think about creating change in our business. The first one is strategy. And you can think about strategy as structural changes to your business. So for example, if you decided that you wanted to introduce a new product line, that would be a strategy change in your business. If you wanted to change the type of clients that you're serving, that would be another strategy or structural change. Or even in a change in your process. For example, if you trained your employees to accomplish a task in a different way, that's a strategy that you could use to reach some of your financial goals, like earning more revenue or saving more in certain expense areas. The second area that you can use to reach your goals are financial levers. So financial levers are little pieces of your finances that you can tweak to earn more money or to reduce your expenses. So for example, if my goal was, I want to make more net revenue. So at the end of the day, I want to have more net revenue in my bank account. I could say I'm going to do that by reducing my spending, in my advertising. And I'm going to say, okay, that's not going to change my revenue. I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to spend less in one category. So that's what I mean by a financial lever. And these usually go hand in hand with strategy. So for example, if you're going to introduce a new product, maybe you're actually going to spend more in a certain financial category, and you're going to want to think about and track that. And then lastly, core strengths. So if you're going to be making a lot of changes to achieve your goals, you also need to lean on your core strengths in your business to provide stability for yourself. And so I want you to keep these in mind. Some of these core strengths and stable areas might be part of your business that you're not very excited about, but they can serve as platforms to help you build out the parts of your business that you are excited about. So maybe write a list, I've got this product or this service or this client that, they're providing a lot of good revenue for me, and I'm not having to put in a lot of energy. And I need to make sure that I maintain that core strength as well as trying to reach these goals that we have for my business. All right, so we're at the last and the third piece in transforming our goals, and that is to track your progress with targets. So we've started with a large goal. For example, I would like to make more revenue in my business. We've then moved to the how. We picked one of our levers. I'm going to change my strategy in my business to make more revenue. And now we're going to find a way to track this to make sure that we actually achieve the goal. And tracking can have a lot of benefits. Just the act of tracking will help you stay on target and, again, inform your decisions so that they continue to work towards your vision. It can also help you catch mistakes. So if you know that you want to increase your prices by 20%, if you track your income and you don't see that price increase, you can track that and make sure that's not actually a mistake on your end. So let's talk about a couple ways to track your progress. So taking a look at your profit and loss statement on a regular basis, and you know there are two pieces on the profit and loss in a simplified form. There's the income and the expenses. So I recommend that you pick an income target for your goal. So if you, for example, are going to increase sales for a specific product, you might want to create an income target number for that product that you can track throughout the year to see whether you are reaching that goal. On the expense side, think about expense. You might need to spend more in some expense categories, and you might need to reduce spending in other categories. So expense areas can be very interesting. You might need to allocate money away from certain expenditures and then put it towards, say, advertising to advertise a new product that you've decided to introduce to the market. And lastly, we have other metrics that aren't on the profit and loss statement. So for example, the number of customers. That can change. If you raise your prices, you might see less customers, but you might see that your average ticket price is higher. Number of sales, and maybe your turnover rate with your clients. These are all different ideas of metrics that you can use beyond your financials to help track your goals. All right, so before I move on, Mandy, any questions? Oh, you're muted.
Just caught that. All right. So I actually had a question for you as you were going through this slide, Sarah. We don't have any yet from our Facebook stream, but as a reminder, if anyone does have questions, just leave a comment under this video where you're watching on Facebook, and we will see your question come over into our stream so I can let Sarah know if you've got a question that you'd like to ask in real time. But Sarah, I wanted to know, for someone who does not know how to set up a profit and loss statement, I don't know if this is something you're covering in this presentation at all today, but I know there's a lot of equestrian business owners who aren't doing any kind of tracking whatsoever. So do you have any basic tips for just like getting started with the tracking that you're talking about here?
Yeah. So first, yes, you need to know how to run your profit and loss statement. So in your accounting software, QuickBooks Online, there will be a preset profit and loss statement that you can easily run in your report section. And I would recommend maybe running it for the year before, so the prior year versus the current year. So you could maybe pull the profit and loss statement for 2021, and that would give you an idea of what your targets were last year. And say you can look at the profit and loss statement and your income is $10,000 last year and you want to grow that revenue and you're thinking, well, maybe I'm going to try and grow it by 10%. Then you can multiply 10,000 by 110%, and that'll get you to that actual financial target. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of playing around with the numbers and the reports, but you can start simple with something very high level and still use that as a financial target to make sure you're on track.
And what if someone wasn't logging their books last year? There's nothing for 2021. Where do they get started if they're starting from scratch?
With getting into the bookkeeping?
Yeah.
They get started with me. I have an entire course on that, and I'm here to help for sure. Yep, there are lots of ways that we can quickly and easily get your books cleaned up for 2021 with a little bit of work. So definitely this goal setting implies that you have your bookkeeping completed. And if you haven't, then that's something to work on for sure.
Definitely. And that is something that's super important. I know that it tends to get backburnered a lot, but It is really important to know where your numbers are so that you can start setting those profitable goals.
Right. Yeah. And I think that if you're in the habit of tracking your targets, then you will keep up with your bookkeeping, right? You've got some motivation because you know you're going to look at the reports at the end of the month or the end of the quarter or whatever. So it's dual purpose, keeps you on track.
Definitely. All right. Okay. Well, I think we can move on.
Okay. So I have a couple examples to kind of walk you through my thinking. Let's see. Okay, so of course, these are fictional companies. So here's a blanket company. They sell horse blankets online direct to their consumer. And so they started out with their big, broad goal. I want to introduce a new product line. Maybe they've got a great idea. It's going to be a pink blanket. And their how is that they are going to eliminate one of their other product lines so that they can reallocate that money towards the new product line. And so that money that's going into their purple blankets that they're getting rid of, they're going to now spend on the pink blankets. And that might be money that they spend on materials to make the blankets. But it also might be things that are less tangible, like money for advertising or money for packaging. So there's lots of different things that we could track to make sure that they stayed on target and actually eliminated the purple blankets and introduced the pink blankets beyond the obvious. So here's a couple examples. They could track their overall revenue. So perhaps they said, well, I'm pretty sure if I introduce the pink blankets that my revenue is going to increase. I definitely would want to track the revenue to make sure that that actually happened. So maybe I might use the revenue from my prior year, 2021, and each quarter I would look to make sure that it was similar. They could track the number of sales. So maybe they expect the pink blankets to result in more sales, and you can track that outside your accounting system, obviously, and compare that to your prior year's number of sales. Or you can just track the overall number and see if sales per month increases over the next year. You could track the average sales ticket. So maybe the pink blanket costs more or people buy more of them. That might be kind of interesting to keep an eye on and would inform your decision about whether it was a good idea to replace the purple blanket. You could also track advertising. So for example, if your sales numbers for the pink blanket, if it's not selling as well as you wanted, you might want to go back to advertising and make sure that you actually are spending enough money on advertising like you had planned to promote new product. And then lastly, you can track cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold is the direct cost that it takes to produce the blanket. For example, the labor involved and the materials. All right, so my second example is a horse training barn. They provide monthly training packages to casual and showing clients. And their big, broad goal is, I want to bring in more revenue. That's very big and broad. And they've decided that the way they're going to bring in more revenue is by raising their rates. And they've made the assumption that their expenses are going to stay the same. So one of the things you definitely would want to track with this goal is whether your expenses actually stay the same. And then you'd also want to track your overall revenue to make sure your total revenue does increase. Now, if your revenue doesn't increase, that could be because you lost some customers. So tracking the number of customers that you have might be helpful, or tracking the turnover rate, which is the number of customers that leave and are replaced, could also be helpful. So there's several different things that you could keep an eye on to make sure that you actually do bring in more revenue and net revenue at the end of the year here. Okay, and my last example is a little bit different. So this is an established horse boarding business. They are profitable and the owner knows they're profitable. This was actually a real life question I got recently. And the owner says, I know I'm making money and I've been in growth mode and I really want to pay myself more. And this is something that's hard for small businesses to do, to pay themselves and pay themselves well. And I think it's because they have a hard time reallocating funds from other areas of their business. So this particular owner said, I think that I actually need to reduce the amount of money that I spend on facility improvements in order to pay myself a higher wage. How do I balance those two things? So we worked out a plan to determine how much she needed to spend on facility improvements during the year to maintain the facility, but not grow the business. And then we reallocated those funds towards her higher wage. And in order to be successful at getting this goal and keeping this goal on target, you really have to track your capital expenditures, which is the facility improvements, closely, because that's an area that gets out of control rapidly. I also recommended that she track and make sure she actually paid herself. So that's the owner draw account. And then lastly, we want to track net revenue because she decided to pay herself more based on the assumption that her net revenue would stay the same. And if that number changed, for example, if she earned less during the year, then we would need to readjust what she was paying herself. So there's 3 good examples of some broad goals and how we've kind of narrowed it down to some financial tracking. There we go. Okay, any questions on the examples?
I really liked that you shared those, Sarah, especially the last one with the real life question that came in, because I do think that's something that a lot of business owners deal with is they aren't sure how to pay themselves out
Right.
of the business. And a lot of times the money just keeps going back into the business.
Right.
So I think that was a really, really good example. Do you see
Right.
that happening a lot with your clients?
Oh, absolutely. They have a really hard time holding themselves accountable. They say, "Oh, I really wanted to buy this new bench or like table for the seating area or something." It's like, okay, well, are you still serving that goal of paying yourself a living wage? And that's where these tracking targets really come in helpful, I think.
Absolutely. What's your number one tip for helping people to make sure they're paying themselves first instead of all of these other extras in their business?
When you do your budgeting on a monthly basis, paying yourself needs to be the first bill on the list. Essentially, you just have to prioritize it, and then you work your budget backwards from that point. So you might have to tweak how much you pay yourself, but it's always got to be pay yourself first for sure.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's take a look at what's on the screen. Looks like you've got a couple links on there.
Yep. Yes. So if you haven't had a chance to download the workbook that goes along with this training, the first link is to that workbook, and it's built out with even more suggestions to kind of get your brain going. And if you want to learn a bit more about my course, my financial management course and QuickBooks Online training, the second link is to our sales page, and it's got a lot of good background info on me as well. And I'd love to hear from you. So I put my email there. Send me questions, comments, complaints. I want to hear it all. And then give me a follow on social. I'm trying to be really good about posting. So give
Yeah,
me some support and love.
you've been doing a great job. I've been watching you on Instagram and Facebook, so you've been
Right.
very consistent.
Yeah,
Great.
so that's it.
All right. Well, let me take the slides off the screen. We'll come in, just the two of us here. There we go. So I just want to hear from a little bit more from you, Sarah, about the Equestrian Business Academy for anyone who might have missed in the very beginning of this video. If some of the content that you mentioned here during the presentation maybe was a little too advanced for some of the people who haven't even started, what can they learn from going through your different educational resources that you have through the Equestrian Business Academy?
Yeah. This training assumes that you have a basis of bookkeeping and a routine in place. And so my training is really focused on the fundamentals of bookkeeping and accounting and applying them to your daily business. So I teach, setting up your QuickBooks account, techniques on how to leverage QuickBooks so that you're not spending too much time on it. I've got a really great weekly routine that I teach to everybody so you know exactly what you need to do when you need to get it done. And then we go into the reports and how you can use the reports, and I try and use a lot of common sense and help you sort of think through everything so that you're not dependent on your CPA and paying, $500 an hour for questions. So it's very much set for DIYers and people who, really want to be hands-on and keep an eye on their money and do the bookkeeping themselves.
Mm. What would you say are some of the top mistakes that you see people coming to you with that they're doing in their bookkeeping or in their business that you try to help them fix?
Probably the number one mistake is that they're using some old-fashioned bookkeeping techniques with QuickBooks Online. The workflow with QuickBooks Online is just completely different. The software was designed differently than the QuickBooks desktop software. So if you aren't following the QuickBooks Online software, you're doing a lot of extra work. So that's probably the big one. And then I think the second one is that people just don't look at their reports. A lot of times they will finish their bookkeeping and they're, on a timely basis, yada, yada, but then they'll never actually look at the data and think about, okay, what does this tell me about my work? And, are things good? Are they bad? I don't know if they're afraid to look at it or don't know, but they don't set aside the like 5 minutes to review it and really contemplate the story that the numbers tell them.
And I think that's a big reason that there are a lot of horse businesses out there that aren't making much money because they don't know what their numbers are doing. They're spending
Right.
the time in the barn doing other things, buying things for their horses
Right.
and what have you. And if you don't look at your numbers, you don't know what they're doing. Like when you play the
Right.
avoidance game, it
Right.
never ends well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It just has to be kind of front and center. And like I said, that just then informs your decision making and helps you stay focused on, your vision for what your business is, and problem solve when things change, right?
Definitely. So, Sarah, one more time, where can people connect with you if they want to get in touch?
They can reach me at my email, contact@equestrianbusinessacademy.com, and then reach out to me through social, Insta and Facebook.
And that's at Equestrian Business Academy, right?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for this great educational topic this evening. It's been great, and the replay will be available. So if anyone missed it, wasn't able to tune into the whole thing live today, you can go back and watch the replay. It'll be available in our Facebook group as well as on YouTube later. So thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.